Hey, I'm Steph. I'm a motivator, creator, small business owner, and educator. I'm a lover of all things health, spirituality, inspiration, and business. These are just a few words to describe me, along with passion, grit, and resiliency. Regardless of what I'm up to, I am soul-driven to create a purpose-filled life and find the advantages in adversity, all while keeping a smile on my face.
Soul Driven with Steph is a podcast that will fill up your cup and leave you feeling empowered, inspired, and on fire as you listen to interviews and stories of other soul-driven and strong women that have overcome against all odds. This podcast was a calling on Steph's soul to serve, connect, and share stories of struggles and successes, all to create a community so that you know you're never alone. Grab a cup of coffee, get ready to learn, laugh, and leave with wisdom and strategies to connect to your soul and get back in the driver's seat of your life today. Here's Steph.
Welcome back to another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. I am very excited for today's special guest, and we're going to dig into a lot of different topics and conversations for anyone to apply into their life. Please welcome to the podcast, Jon Reiner.
Hello. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have this conversation. We're kind of more recent connections, but it's been really cool to follow your journey into entrepreneurship and to be able to learn from you in your training a few months ago. So let's just start with your origin story. You're a great storyteller. So tell us, how did you get into doing what you do right now as far as becoming a pastor? And then we'll kind of go along that journey as well.
Okay, sure. So, origin story, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a church that was it was large, it was active, and a big part of how I got into what I'm doing now as a pastor, and specifically like a teaching pastor, is our church would always they always had things happening on the platform. And I think there was something about that I really loved. And so they would have these giant Christmas productions. It was in Madison, Wisconsin. So we had people coming from Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa to these giant Christmas productions with like live animals. It was like 3 hours long. It had, like they would contract in all these professional theater lighting and sound and all that. And I loved it. Like that, I loved. There was something about it, so much energy, so much life. But I also saw how it could move people. It was engaging. People wanted to take their time to be a part of it. And then there was, the teaching aspect of church, the speaking aspect of church, the ministry aspect, the interacting with people, all of that. I grew up in it, and we were very active in our church. And so we had Sunday morning stuff. We had Wednesday night stuff. We had midweek stuff. We had this drama stuff, youth ministry things. And I went to a school, a K through 12 school that was attached to that same church. So this is my world growing up. All of my life was kind of surrounded by this Judeo-Christian atmosphere, culture. And I think that played a big part into why I do what I do. But even from a young age, I felt like I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to teach. I want to speak. I like it's not just being on a stage, but it's almost being on the stage and impacting people. It's bringing a message that people can come alive to, that engages their emotions. That I always say when people ask me, what do you love about what you do? And I love light bulb moments. I love allowing people or ushering light bulb moments. So when you're doing something and you take your knowledge base or expertise or experience or history or story or perspective, your thought creation, and you are able to give people an aha moment, those light bulb moments about life, faith, spirituality, what it means to be human, business, whatever it is. I love that. And so I think that was a part that first drew me to it. But I grew up in this world, and I think growing up in this world, there's almost that natural pull to be a part of ministry. And I don't want to say everyone has to be, because that's not it. Too often, I think we put too high of a pedestal on you can be in work ministry, and that's like a higher, occupation than what everyone else does. And I don't like that at all. But as a middle schooler, high schooler, I felt like this is what I'm going to do with my life, or at least this is a part of what I'm going to do with my life. And so I've been in some form of Christian ministry for probably 20 years, 21 years. And so a lot of what I even do now in entrepreneurship and everything else has come from that place of aha moments, giving people teachings and messages and stories and helping them navigate life by the spoken word is specifically kind of where I've landed.
Very cool. Well, it's awesome to see just how you take something that you've experienced and witnessed at a young age and kind of formulate that into this is what I want to do. And of course, there's twists and turns along the path. Tell us a little bit about what called you then to think about teaching other people how to speak. So you become a speaker. I'm sure there was a big learning curve in speaking on a stage in front of a lot of people consistently week after week, which allowed you to build up the skill to then maybe look for something more that you could impact people in a different way. So take us on that journey. What led you to that?
Yeah, you nailed it. A big what you said. One thing that you said was, "Is there something more?" And I think that was the pull for me. And it wasn't, I don't necessarily want to be a part of church anymore, ministry anymore. It was, are there other ways I can do this thing that I love doing? Are there other ways that I can create and teach? And how do I take one thing that maybe I have, I don't want to say a high level mastery of, but you start to develop a mastery of something, and how can I take that thing? Does it translate in other places? And that was a big, and still is, a convincing thing for me, where I looked at my resume and thought, I've worked at church for 20. That's my resume, is I've worked at church for 20 years. I'm not sure that this translates anywhere. And you realize that some of those skill sets that you have really can translate other places. And the church world is actually not that different in a lot of ways than the business world. You have project managers, you have supervisors, you have team leads, you have speakers, communicators, executives. We like to say, oh no, it's not a business. A lot of it does translate as like a business. And so for me, how I got in this world was that pull of, is there another way that I can do this thing that I love doing, which is teaching and helping other people. And when I realized that what comes so naturally to me, in a sense, is really difficult for other people, there's even that much more of a pull and excitement of, well, what do I love? I love light bulb moments. I love helping people find their voice. It's like, oh, is there a market for that? I didn't even know. I was just trying to figure out if there are other ways that I can do the thing that I do.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an income question. Yes, I have a wife and 3 kids, and how can I, earn extra income without starting over a whole career? I told my wife, I don't want to learn how to code, or program computers. That's not me. I'm not starting all over. So how can I take what I already have? And long story shorter, it went down the road of looking at, there's different firms and public speaking firms. And there was one in California that wasn't even hiring. They had no job postings. I reached out to them because I saw their name posted quite a bit as far as who their clientele is and who they've helped. Within a couple of weeks, I went from a simple contact us form on the website. So shout out to anyone. Apparently people do read those. I always thought that was like businesses were obligated to have a contact us form, but I filled it out, and it turned into a couple emails and then a Zoom call with their CEO and founder. And she started the Zoom call by saying, we're not hiring. And then she ended it by saying, how can I hire you? And that turned into, me being a contractor for a company in California, and then eventually me doing my own coaching and training as well, individually. And so a lot of it came from, is there another way that I can do the thing that I enjoy doing? And that's been a big, almost internal philosophical learning process for me, that you can love doing things, and it doesn't mean there's only one way to do it. And that's okay. There's other ways to do the things that you love doing, and you don't have to feel stuck, trapped, like you hit a ceiling. There are other ways to do the things that you love, and that can bring you life and can still impact people. And that's been a beautiful learning process for me, as now I've also started, in addition to the church, doing public speaking, coaching, training, and keynoting. So
I love it. Well, you really hit the nail on the head by saying, what else can I do with the skills that I have? We're never truly starting over. We're always carrying with us
Yeah.
past experiences, people, wisdom and skill sets. And how can I translate it? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop what you're currently doing, which I think
Hmm.
is key. You don't have to be done with something else. You can simply layer on to just like challenge yourself. Like, I think as
Hmm.
humans, we need next levels to grow, to learn. When we reach a certain state of mastery, like you said, we need something more. And it's not a negative thing. It's truly to stay engaged and stay excited about what we're currently doing if we want to stay with that, or to just see what else is out there for us and challenge ourselves in new ways.
Yeah, it can be hard to fight that internal voice that says maybe you failed, or this is all you'll ever be, or if you try something else, then maybe that means you didn't cut it at the first thing, or you're giving up on it or walking away from it. And those are all those internal battles that you have to face. But there were a lot of good books and resources that I went through during this process. And so many of them, would say things like, you look at your life as a book. Look at your life as a book. Each chapter matters, but each chapter is not its own book, right? And so this
Mhm.
chapter has to end in order for another one to begin, but everything is still connected in a way. And so many of those little nuggets, right? And also, like, nothing's wasted. Nothing's
Mhm.
wasted. And that may be hyper spiritual, but nothing's wasted. And the season of life that you're going through, the things that you try. I know you've talked really openly about, you had a gym and then you didn't have a gym. Like, was that a mistake? Was it positive? Was it negative? Did I fail? Did I succeed? Sometimes those descriptions just don't work. You know, it,
Mhm.
the succeed and fail descriptions don't necessarily fit into this human experience. Sometimes it's, I did a thing, or I
Yeah.
learned during a season, I tried a thing. And yeah, it doesn't mean that you necessarily can't do anything else, or that you hit a ceiling. It just means that you did a thing. Good job, you did a thing,
Yes.
and now that
I
thing can go into another thing. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And I 100% agree. Nothing is ever wasted. You're either learning from it or, it's a stepping stone to the next season or chapter of your life. I love looking at life like a book, because we're always going to have different chapters. But like you said,
Mhm.
oftentimes we have to close the door, at least somewhat, on one chapter to be able to step
Yeah,
into the next one.
yeah, or
So,
your character's developing, right?
yeah.
If you've ever watched a movie or you've gone through a book series, none of us just want our character to cap at the first chapter. Their
Yeah.
character development is huge. You're just going through a character development. That's what you're doing constantly, is I'm
Oh,
going through a
I am
character
going
development.
to capture
And
that in the back of my mind. Next time I'm going through a transition or evolution, I
yeah,
am developing in my character
I'm
of my
going
book.
through a character development.
I
Yes.
love it. Well, what are some of the things that you teach to help people become more confident in public speaking? Because as we know, isn't it's like the number one fear
It
is
is.
public speaking. And you had this, like, I'm sure it
Uh,
took time to acquire, but like more confidence in standing on a stage and speaking because you did it every single week. So why not take those skills and teach it to other people? So, what are maybe two or three tips you would give to someone, tangible tips they can implement for any sort of public speaking that they're maybe not confident in, that they want to build their confidence?
Sure. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed, and the anxiety and the fear comes in because they feel insignificant, inferior, ill equipped, all of that. And so, one thing that I really press when I'm doing trainings, workshops, is to change your perspective into making it very audience strategic. It's audience focused. And so, number one thing is, it's about them, not you. It's
Mm-hmm.
about them, not you. So, some of us as speakers, we get really overwhelmed by how much content should I give people, and I want to give them everything that I can give them because I only have a half hour to talk to them, right? So right now I'm doing a podcast episode with you for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, whenever you cut me off. I know I could give you more information about public speaking that I'll be able to give in 30, 40 minutes. So instead, it's, you become more strategic. Who is my audience? This is more about them. So I ask, and you know this, we went through some of this training, is I ask very audience specific questions. What do I want my audience to do when I'm done with this? Okay, so make it more about them than you. What do I want them to do? Who are they? Who's my audience? What matters to them? It doesn't matter if you are running a small business circle of individuals, if you own a gym, if you're a public speaking coach, if you're in real estate, if you're a small business owner, a shop owner, whatever. People are coming to you because they have a need. Whether it's they want to buy a candle, or they want to be a part of an organization of fellow business owners, or they have to upskill in public speaking, people have a need. So what matters to them? So it's about them would be tip number one. Where do you want this to go? What do you want them to do at the end of it? And start with the end in mind. What's the transformation that's going to happen? Second thing is, there was a study done years ago, and they asked an audience what makes a speaker credible. And they gauged it on 3 factors: body language, tone, and information. Now, as speakers, we would like to think that we are being graded on the information that we can give people, right? So if I can give people information, I would think I'm credible because I know what I'm talking about. That wasn't the case with this study. What the study found was that between body language, tone of voice, and information, 55% of the audience said body language is the most important. 38% was tone. Only 7% was information, which means when we as speakers, whether, again, it could be a 5-minute sales pitch that you're giving to someone. By public speaking, I don't mean you're in front of hundreds or thousands of people. It could be one-on-one. You could be doing a sales call. You could be doing a tour for a home that you're selling. It really doesn't matter what your audience is. If you're talking to another person, it's public speaking. And what your audience is telling you is that your body language and your tone of voice mean more for your credibility than the information that you have. So 1, make it about your audience. 2, what your audience cares about is actually the things you don't think about the most. So your body language, what are you doing with your hands? Are you making eye contact? Is your posture weird? Are you coming off defensive? Are you looking engaged and warm and soft? What is your tone saying? Are you monotone? Can you fluctuate your tone? Are you able to write out emotions? Because that's going to be the third thing I'm going to talk about. Those things matter more as far as your credibility than your information does. Okay? With that, I would say your audience is going to make their judgment statement of you within the first 2 minutes. So if you come off really bland, really monotone, really checked out, disengaged, your audience is going to know it, and it's going to be really hard to get their attention again. The third thing is how much emotion and tone matter. If you are unable to communicate with emotions, you're not going to engage your audience. So last study I'll give you is that they did, they found that the average adult makes around 34,000 decisions a day. 34,000 decisions a day we make. Yeah. 90% are often based off of feelings and emotions, not information. So again, how am I engaging my audience's feelings and emotions rather than just drilling them with a bunch of information over and over and over again? Do I have the ability to engage them in their feelings, in their emotions, to help them drive to do the thing that I want them to do at the end of the day? Because they have a need and they're coming to you because you might have the answer to their need. If you don't engage with that, you will probably miss an opportunity. So make it more about them than about you, right? Engage them with their feelings, and make sure that your tone and body language match your message. Because if it's distracting or not engaging, then it doesn't matter how good of information you give them, it won't matter. So there's 3 little nuggets, just 3 little nuggets.
Those were so good. And I agree. And I'm guilty of this, of feeling like I just want to give them the best information that I have, right, in this small time frame. But it's really not about that. Like, they are going to get more value from you connecting with them as the audience, whether that's the emotions, the feelings, telling stories, which we'll talk about more. And also, like, thinking of what does my audience need to believe in order to buy into what I'm saying, to give me that credibility? How do we connect on a level of like, we have a similar belief to actually create the transformation and the action that you want them to do? And I know we talked
Yeah.
about that in your training as well. Maybe you can restate the phrase, but it was, what do I need to, or how do I want them to feel in order to get them to think in the way that it will inspire action? Was I
Yeah.
close?
Kind of, yeah. So the questions that we go through, right? Spot on for effort, spot on, yeah. No, so the questions that we asked were, I start with the end in mind. What do I want my audience to do? Then I say, okay, how do I want my audience to feel in order to do the thing I want them to do? And then the final question is, okay, now what does my audience need to know in order to feel the thing I want them to feel, to do the thing that I want them to do? And so the last thing I have people do when I help them, that's one of my favorite things to do, is in my coaching, I help people with their body language, their delivery, their presentation skills, but I also help them create their content. So I help people create their brand stories. I help them create their presentations. I help them create their keynotes, whatever it might be. The last thing we talk about is information, because I need to know, where are we headed, right? It's like starting your journey without a GPS, without a map, without a compass. You're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And sometimes that works, but if you only have 30 minutes, you only have 5 minutes, you only have 2 minutes, you should know where you're going. So I want them to know that I see them. I know they have a need. I want to take them to where I think is the best destination for them. And I know based on those studies that to capture their feelings is going to be the best way to get them there. Then finally, I ask the question, okay, now what do they need to know? It's not everything I know about the topic. It's only what's going to help them achieve that feeling to get that action.
Yeah, so there's so much that we can always cut down, and really turn the focus on the audience, the people that we're trying to serve, and create that transformation. So you help people through coaching and becoming public speakers. What has your journey been like going into entrepreneurship in this way? And being, your own business essentially. Take us through that.
Yeah,
What is
that's been oh man, that's a layered one, Stephanie. It's been exciting. It's been challenging, but it hasn't been challenging necessarily. It's been more challenging internally, mentally. A lot of that imposter syndrome, a lot of that, just the voices around you. So one thing that's helped me the most is having those wise, knowledgeable people who are also encouraging you to move forward, to pursue the thing you're trying to pursue. Because you'll always have the haters. You'll always have the naysayers. You'll always have those voices of negativity saying, well, why are you really doing that? What's your motives? Where are you really? What are you trying to? You'll always have those voices. And so if there's something pulling on you to do, one of the biggest lessons and encouraging factors was the people around me that said, I think you really can do this. So that the mental game was probably, for me personally, one of the hardest ones of maybe I should just not do this. Maybe everyone else is right. Maybe I shouldn't pursue this thing. So that was a hard one. For me, I was lucky to have kind of a launch pad with this company that hired me as a contractor. So that helped as well, because I wasn't starting with nothing necessarily. So I had that outsourcing of clients and contracts. I also had the 20 years of experience. So you're kind of selling what people already know that you're able to do, in a sense. And so that helped. But a lot of the ins and outs, like the financial stuff, I need to stay organized. I need to know what the heck is going on. Setting up, I felt like the biggest adult in the entire world when I signed up for QuickBooks. I thought, now I've made it. I've made it in my life. It's not just a Google sheet. I have QuickBooks. So those little things, learning, it's exciting, but it's difficult. It's also a juggling match because it's not the only thing that I do. And so trying to balance all of it together. I have my job at a church. I also have this thing that I'm doing. I have another business that other people don't even know about. That's a Holocaust educator. I have a family and a marriage. So there's a lot of things. And so that's been more like the balancing act has been a big one. The mental game has been a difficult one. But it's been really exciting to be able to help people And so having a positive team around you that's wise, knows what they're doing, someone who's been in it a little bit longer than you have, rely on that. To anyone who's listening to this, rely on that. Go to them, ask the questions. Listen to them when they're encouraging you to do something that's outside of your comfort zone, but they see that it's possible. And that, I know that we have a mutual mentor in Misty. I hope I can say her name. I think that's all right. So we have a mutual mentor in Misty, and she's been one of those voices of just, I think you could do this. You should try it. And so the training that you went to in May, that Elite Speaker Summit, one of the most fun things I've done professionally in years. And that was part of her brainchild, is I think you could do this. You should try this. You do workshops for other people all the time. I think you should do your own. So listening to other people's advice has been a huge factor. But yeah, every week it's still like, okay, how much do I still want to do this? Is this still, how far am I going to go in this?
That is
how
normal.
far?
Like, I think just normalizing the mental load of entrepreneurship and the balancing act, as well as, like you said, just the needing to kind of change your mindset around what is possible, because it really is unlimited, but we have to build up our confidence to be able to go after those things. And oftentimes, like you said, we have to borrow that confidence from someone else who believes in us first before we can truly believe in ourselves. And that's why mentors and business friends and coaches and all of those people speaking positivity and encouragement into our lives is so important in all stages of small business ownership.
Yeah.
So
I like that word, borrow. It's almost like I have to go to the bank and kind of take a withdrawal from someone else's account of confidence, and then you build up yours, and then you're able to encourage other people in it. And that was something that some of my mentors have said. I asked them, why are you doing this? Why are you paying so much attention to me? Why are you speaking so much life and encouragement to me? And above and beyond anything else that they say is because I had this person in my life. I had someone else in my life who did it for me, and I'm just kind of repaying it, right? You're paying it forward in the sense of that encouragement for other business owners. And so for me, I would say my answer is more the mental game and the balancing. That's been some of the biggest struggles for me, but it's also been really exciting to work with people and helping them find their voice and use their voice.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the storytelling side of things, because I do think that's a huge part of, anyone can use this in everyday life. I'm speaking to maybe small business owners or people in sales and marketing, and, being able to use stories to inspire transformation or inspire people to do what you want them to do off of your presentation, right? Why is it so important to incorporate stories into our sales, our small business, our whatever we're trying to inspire someone to do? And how do we do that?
Yeah. Okay. So if you're not using stories, if you're a business owner, small business owner, and you're not even thinking about the word story, you need to start. Stories are powerful because of things we already just talked about. You have to engage your audience's feelings. You have to gauge their emotions. You have to get them to feel a certain way so that they act or do the thing that you want them to do. One of the fastest ways to engage people's emotions is through stories. Stories are a universal message for us. It's a universal language for us, right? So I say music, mathematics, and stories are like the universal languages. So we do it all the time. We tell stories all the time. Very rarely do we just give facts to people. We usually wrap a fact or a lesson or thing that you learned or your day in a story. So if you're not using stories, you need to start thinking about it. I think nowadays people are getting a little bit more used to stories. We use terms like, what's your brand story? Well, what are we saying by brand story? Well, what's the origin story? Who are you? What are you selling? What service are you providing? And what's the purpose of it? What's the driving why behind what you're doing? That's your story. So if you're a small business owner and you're just making posts, or you're a small business owner and you're just creating something on Canva, ask yourself, what's the story of my business? Who am I? And how am I trying to engage with other people through stories? So I think stories are powerful. There's a lot of science behind stories. We probably don't have time to get through all of that. But there's been a lot of science, neuroscience done on the power of storytelling, in that stories release greater levels of dopamine and oxytocin in your listener's brain. It also engages their memory faculties a lot more in the brain. So people are going to remember your story more than they just remember your facts. And so if you can engage people with stories in what you're doing, posting, saying, communicating, it's actually going to go a lot farther. And you see that now in marketing. You see it in commercials. You'll see it in the industry. Go watch commercials. Go listen to commercials. Hardly ever is it just telling you information. It's telling you a story. Because if they can get one of their viewers to hear that story, put themselves in the character of that story, even if it's just a kid with a grass stain on their shorts from playing soccer. Oh, I have kids who get dirty. I should use your laundry detergent. Right? Like, you didn't tell me anything about your product. You just create a story, and I put myself into it. So across the board right now, and this is one thing I have the honor of doing, is working with companies across industries, whether it's finance, health and medical, pharmaceutical, automobiles, car industry, whatever it is, everyone is turning to stories and using stories. So it's creating stories that help people see the success in your product or service. It's telling stories about people who had a lot of things in their way, a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, but then they ended up using your product or service, and here's the result that came out of it. It's crafting a story for why you're doing what you're doing. You called it an origin story. Some people call it a founder story, the beginning story. How did I get into this in the first place? It's crafting stories for who you are and what's the culture of your business. What are you trying to accomplish? I think you do that really well with your sister circle. This is the DNA of who we are. This is what it means to be a part of who we are. You're crafting a story, whether people realize it or not, that they can get engaged in. And so that's a big part of what I do. So even when I'm teaching or preaching at a church, I rely heavily on storytelling. I try to tell the story of the scriptures. I tell the ancient Jewish stories, the ancient Greek stories. I tell the stories of the Bible to try to get my audience to put themselves in that position so that they're feeling what that story is, rather than just giving them do's and don'ts and rules and regulations and restrictions. And this is what religion says. I try to tell the story, and then people can get the meaning out of it when you tell the story. And in businesses, I teach this across the board. We were just talking about before you pressed record. I'm heading up to the cities tomorrow to fly to Boston to teach a company storytelling for an hour, and then I'm flying back. Businesses are craving storytelling right now. And so if you need help with storytelling, for sure, seek it out, ask me, but get into storytelling, crafting stories for your business, because it will increase your connectivity with your audience.
Absolutely. And who doesn't love to hear a story over just facts? I just think it's so much more engaging. And especially when you can get really good at telling a specific story, maybe your origin story as a business owner. Tell us, what are some of the types of stories that we could share or that would really help us connect with our audience we're trying to serve?
Sure. So a couple that we mentioned. One, the origin story. Where did you come from? A lot of businesses have this, especially larger businesses. This is the thing on their website or at their headquarters. This is how we started. They have pictures along the way, almost like a museum exhibit. So where did you come from? Why are you doing what you're doing? A lot of people like to know that. If it's on a website, it's usually the About Us page. It's the bio page. It's who we are, right? So the origin story is a big one. So if you're a small business owner and you don't have a pocket 2-minute story, 1-minute story about why you started, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, that's your origin story. Another one is more of a who we are. It's your culture story or a DNA story, or it really details the values of who you are. So what we value: excellence, customer service, creativity, ingenuity, efficiency, whatever, green standard, whatever your product or service is, what is it that you value as a company? Because then, especially if you expand, if you take on employees, your employees want to know, what are they signing up for? Who are we? Or if you have an organization, again, to use your example of your small business circle, what are you signing up for? That would be your DNA story. It's your culture story. This is who we are. And that creates a sense of buy-in. I want to be a part of what Stephanie is doing, right? So then you have you call it your future story. You can call it the imagined story, the what if story. So if you're a real estate agent and you're giving someone a tour of a house, a future story would be, imagine in 5 years from now, right? Imagine 10 years from now, 5 years from now, your kids are X old, they're in the backyard, they're playing. It's 4th of July, you have the fireworks, you have a bonfire. It's helping your potential client or current client envision what the future looks like if they use your services. If you're a website designer, if you're a social media manager, if you are a product creator, you're asking your audience, imagine 5 years from now, your health could be different if you use this supplement. Imagine 3 years from now, your business is grown by 25% because you upgraded your website. You are inviting them to imagine what the future looks like if they go with you, your service, and your product. So that's more of an imagine story, future story. We talked about a success story or victory story. That's just a story when something went right. And that's usually the most common. We love telling those stories. This is when something went right in my world, right? So your product really worked, your service really worked, your customers were really happy. That's the testimonial page, even when you have the testimonials from previous clients on your website or social media, you're telling a success story. But I would encourage people to even take it one step further. Rather than just a quote sometimes of a testimonial, then tell the story about what that process was like. So if you have a testimony of someone who said, this is the greatest thing I've ever been a part of, good. Now make another segment or another post that's a little bit longer, a reel that tells a story about what it was like working with this person. What were their obstacles? How did it succeed? An underrated story for some people is a failure story. Failure story is the stories when things didn't go right, but we can learn from those. We learn a lot when things go well. We learn even more when things don't. And so telling failure stories of maybe, yeah, someone came to me that decided not to go with my product. They went with this other product. They're no longer in business. That's a failure story. Or the failure story of your own. I started a business. I made X, blah, 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 and it didn't go well. And I know previously we said failure and success don't really necessarily fit sometimes. But this didn't go well. It didn't go right. And this is what we learned from it. So those are the lesson learned stories. And if you're on a team or staff, I know you specifically talk to small business owners, this has a lot of influence with gaining credibility and encouragement within a team. If you can say, hey, I did this once, it didn't go well. I know what you're going through because I made some of the same mistakes. Here's how I rebounded from it. Failure stories are effective. One more I would say is kind of the up against the wall, against all odds type story. It's the ones where a client, a customer, you as a business owner, you were facing an obstacle, 2 obstacles, 3 obstacles. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. How am I supposed to recover from this? And you did. That's kind of the against all odds. It's the your back is against the wall. I don't know how I'm going to survive this. So even right there, 5 or 6, however many that was, different story types. If you're a small business owner, it's great to have an example of all of those, whether you're in sales, marketing, whatever it might be, is to have kind of a toolbox, if you will, of different stories that you can use from personal examples and your personal stories. And you can expand it. You can use other people's stories. I use stories from Lincoln Motors, from Chevrolet. I use stories from laundry detergent companies. Those are the things that help build credibility as well and help an audience see your point. So there's a handful of ones that I would encourage any business owner, if you don't already have those stories or if you need help crafting those stories, to seek that out because it's so powerful to have.
Yeah, thank you. Those were so good. I love the against all odds. It reminds me of like an underdog story, which is like the movies that I love to watch, and who doesn't love to cheer for an underdog against all odds.
And it grips your feelings, right? That story's not about you, Stephanie, but it grips your feelings. You can put yourself in it, and it changes you, challenges you to make, adaptions, changes to who you are. It's not about me, but it gripped my feelings enough to make me do something. And that's the point right there.
Yeah, we just have to be able to tell our stories in a way that someone else, whoever we're speaking to, can see themselves in the story and inspire that action, that transformation. Yes. And we can use these stories, like you said, in our marketing. Oh my gosh, if we just wrote down one of each of all the examples you just gave, that would give us marketing for days, right? Making videos, writing content, having testimonials, all of those things to inspire marketing. Also in coaching, I just read something recently where it was using an example, a story of something you had previously experienced to inspire change in someone else when you're coaching them, to kind of put yourself on the same level of like, hey, I've been there. I did this once. Maybe it didn't work. It's that failure, or it did work. or, I tried it and it didn't work. So I
Yeah.
had to try something else. And just like, I think it's that relatability that if we can connect to someone with a story or an experience, um, we gain that credibility, like you were
Yeah, for sure.
saying. We
Yeah, yeah.
get that buy-in and that emotional engagement that we're looking for.
Yeah,
So, so good.
one more
Yeah.
thing with that is anyone who is a small business owner and is that I encourage people to kind of do an inventory of all the different types or needs within what you do. So if you're a real estate agent, you might have a first-time home buyer. You might have the person who is just married, they're looking to expand because they had kids. You might have the I'm looking for my forever home. You might have the I'm looking for an investment property, or the we're retired, we're downsizing, we're relocating. That's what, 5, 6 different examples. Have a story for all of those different examples so that you can relate to your customer better. So whatever, if it's a website, if it's social media, if it's a product, service, whatever, do an inventory of who are the different people that I serve, what are their needs, and what examples do I have of how I've met those needs with people. And now you just multiplied your story inventory by, 4 times 5, whatever. And it just accumulates more stories and more ability to connect with whoever your audience is and whatever their need is.
Yeah, super good. Kind of
Oh,
tangible tip there. I love it. So, just switching to focus on your personal goals and fulfillment in life, what are you looking forward to? Like, what's next for you, whether it's business or personal?
ooh.
Uh-huh.
um, Business, I don't know. I'm taking that one step by step because,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm juggling a couple things, and I think I'm in a good place right there of being able to do that. Personally, one of the reasons that I've started doing more than one thing is because the fear of regret is huge for me. The fear
Mhm.
of what if I what if I had done it? What if I had tried it? I don't like failing. If I'm going to do something, I want to be able to do it really, really well. So failure really is a hard word for me, but so is regret. And
Mhm.
so the idea of sitting on untapped opportunity, untapped potential, untapped ideas, when you start to realize that you have ideas going off all the time in your head that you might be writing down, or, oh, that would be a great project, or that would be something I want to create, that might be something I want to write. And that's all they ever become is ideas or scribbles in a notebook that you put away in a drawer and never look at again. Over time, that becomes scarier than
Mhm.
the failure idea. And it's something I'm still wrestling with, but I'm 39 now, and I don't want to go another decade or 2 decades before you start to realize you had a lot of ideas that you could have capitalized on, but you didn't do anything with it. And so where I want to go, whether it's professionally or business wise, is I want to start putting more effort into those ideas, the creativity. And so there are a couple book ideas in my head. I want to start getting those out. There's a couple
Mhm.
audiobooks, podcasts. I want to get those out. I have a master's in the Holocaust, and right now there's a huge need across the country for more Holocaust education. That's a whole nother podcast, but I have something there. I have a knowledge base, and I have a
Mhm.
speaking ability. I have the ability to create, to write. I could create a curriculum for schools that they could use for
Mhm.
Holocaust education. So there's a lot of ideas in my head that I don't want to just sit on anymore. So in 5 years, 10 years, I want to have a book or two out. I want to have an audiobook out. I want to start getting out of my head of the ideas that said you could have done more. I want to get past the voices that say, well, why are you trying to do more? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you making this about you? And just simply be as unapologetically myself as I possibly can. And so if I like creating and writing, then I want to create and write. If I like teaching and workshopping, then I want to do those things. If I like coaching, I want to do it. And so my goal for the future is to step out more in those ideas that I have and simply let it take me where it's going to take me. And I think that's an example for my 3 daughters of
Mhm.
daddy went for it. He had ideas and he went for it, as opposed to how do I garner creativity and imagination in my daughters and then stifle it all the time because I was afraid to do what I wanted to do. Am I really going to be able to encourage them? Or do I come one of those parents that lives vicariously through my kids because I was afraid to do something? So now I'm going to put my pressure on them that they have to. I those are a lot of philosophical questions, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the stuff that I want to focus on. Is I think there's a lot of things in me, and I wonder what example I'm going to set for my girls if I go for it and I do it and I try it. And if it succeeds, if it does well, if it works, if it's a good character development, then that's another chapter that my girls get to read. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm thinking of. Is I know I'm only 39, but you start to think of legacy questions. What's the thing that's going to
Mm-hmm.
define you? He's a guy that went for it. He did it. And ultimately, to be really blunt, there's the business financial, you know, perspective of things. I just got done with a 3-week camper trip, like Montana, Yellowstone with my girls, and I loved it. And there is that pull of how can I be as fully myself as possible using all my gifts and talents to make money in less time so that I can spend more time with my family, as opposed to, oh, I want to provide for my family, so I have to work 80 hours, 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I provide for them, but I don't have any time for them.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the answer? Like you get stuck in some of those ways of thinking because other people want to make you stuck there. And then, or you put yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, the only way I can provide for my family is if I work 2 or 3 different jobs for 80 hours a week. And then I have no time for my family, but it was all for my family. Well,
Yep.
something doesn't add up there. So that's a long way of answering your question. What are my goals? Is I want to start stepping out. I want to do the creative things, even if they're scary. I want to be more willing to fail. I want to create the legacy of my girls. I want to make money in less time, so I have more time with them. And I want to be excited about those things and not be in my head about whether I
Yeah.
should or shouldn't. Just go for it. And that's the exciting ride. It took me this long. So if you have younger listeners, go for it. I'm
Yeah.
39. Go for it. Go for it. If you have an idea, go for it. If you have people older than me, no, it's not too late. Try
Yeah.
it. If you have a thing in your heart, if there's a desire that you have, if there's a thing that you enjoy doing, find a way to do it, and add another chapter of character development into your life of who you are.
I love it. Oh, so good, John. I mean, this is why we relate and on so many different levels because I am the same way. Like, I have all these ideas and there's no reason to not pursue them. And, sometimes it is taking them one at a time. But I think I've personally tried to get out of this mentality of, oh, it's not the right season. Oh, it's not
Mm.
this. Oh, there's not enough of, whatever XYZ excuse I have. And just there's never going to be a perfect time for anything. But I think when you really are pursuing something out of call it a God calling or a intuition or a
Uh,
passion, something is nudging you inside to go for it, then it
yeah.
probably is the right time.
Yeah, go
We
for
just
it.
have to answer the call. And I agree. Like, my goal is to work less and make more money. Like, I'll just be blunt. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And my driving force behind that is because I want more time with my family to create memories and to create a legacy. And I want to show other business owners that this is possible. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be chained to your business, and your business should not be controlling your life. Like, if that's the case, you might as well just go back to working a regular job. Like,
For
there's really
sure.
no point in being an entrepreneur if you are not enjoying the benefits of
Yes.
entrepreneurship. And it doesn't come immediately. We all know that there are seasonalities of hustle and hard work and
Yep.
sacrifice, of course, but it can't always be that. And I
Yep.
think just, following those nudges, inspire, it's what keeps us excited every day to get
Yeah.
up and go do the
Yeah.
thing. So
And
I
there's
love
yeah,
it.
and there's some people, like, there's nothing wrong. Some people just they love their job and they love going to their
Mhm.
job and doing their job, and that's great. Like, go for it. If that's love it. And there's nothing better or worse about it. But I did see someone wrote an article and they said something specifically to the demographic that has an idea for a business that they want to start or a venture that they want to try out. Is that they said, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, what is the worst that would happen if this business doesn't work? And they said, well, the worst would be I go back and I work the 9 to 5 and I work X amount of years and then I retire.
Yeah.
Okay, so the worst that's going to happen is what most people do. Like, that's not a worst thing. That's a normal thing. Like, so
Normal,
what?
quote
Yeah,
unquote.
like the worst case scenario is actually just it's normal life, and like, and I don't say that in any sort of discrepancy. It's just more of like you're scared that the worst thing is going to happen is what a lot of us do in love. So
Yeah. Like it's not a bad thing.
go
Like
for it. Yeah. Like,
it's
go for
not
it.
the
Go
worst
for it.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Add another chapter.
Yes. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you most proud of about yourself?
Ooh, what am I most proud of? I think the obvious answer is that dad is I'm most proud of my kids, but I can't say that all the time. No, I'm proud. I'm proud of the life that I have. I'm proud that in the midst of all of my fears and stresses and insecurities, that something good and beautiful has come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something good and beautiful will continue to come out of it. I'm proud that I haven't given up. I'm proud that in difficult times you just keep going. I'm proud that if it comes down to it, I will do whatever I need to do. And I will work 40, 80, 100 hours. If that's what I have to do, I know that. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's something in me that says I will do whatever it takes. I know that. And so I'm not most proud necessarily of all the accomplishments and awards and all that. I think it's just more, I am proud that I'm still here, that I'm still going, that I'm still developing. I am proud that I have a family. I'm proud that my 3 girls are who they are. I'm proud of my wife. I'm proud to be married to her for 16 years. There's a lot of stuff about that I'm proud of. And I'm proud that I'm finally in a point now that I'm okay with taking steps out of my comfort zone for what people may think negatively about or judgmentally about, that I'm still able to take those steps. And I think there's a long time in my life where I would have just been in my head. I would have been stuck in my head. I would have discounted myself, discredited myself, and just stopped because, well, if other people aren't going to like it, if other people don't think it's worthwhile, if other people think this, if other people think that, then I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to make waves. That's my personality. I don't like being an inconvenience. I don't like making waves. And it's becoming to the point where, like, that's okay. It's okay. If they don't like me, it's okay. There are, 7,999,999,000 other people in the world that I can have the opportunity to engage with. It doesn't have to be all 8 billion. And so that's okay. But I would rather stand before the Lord one day and say, I did something with everything you gave me, than say, I buried everything that you gave me because I'm afraid of what other people might think. And so that's where I am right now. And I'm more and more proud of that.
I love it. I'm so proud of you too. And just like
thank you.
those are thoughts that everyone has, especially going out and doing something new in a business and all of those things. So, kudos to you for continuing to move through it and keep going. My final question is, what drives your soul today? What do you get up for each morning?
What drives my soul? My family drives me a lot. The ability to create something, to do something. So there's like a philosophy for me that might turn into one of those books I was talking about. And it's, if I ever write this book, I'll say it now. If someone steals it, that's just rude. You're just being rude. No, the book's called, it's called A Whole Lot of Holy.
I like that.
A whole lot of holy. And it's based off this idea that life is beautiful. Moments matter. And when you sink into all moments, you experience God. Not just the spiritual ones, not just the religious ones. When you sink into all of life's moments, you experience God. And so I actually get excited going through the day of this moment matters. I don't know why. I'm really stressed. I'm angry. I'm about 2 seconds from snapping at my girl, but this moment matters. And I think it's the story. It's the developing story. It's the something beautiful is possible in this moment. Something good is here. God is here. The divine is here. Something spiritual is here. And I want to experience that thing. I was created with certain abilities and giftings and strengths and weaknesses. I want to tap into all of those things to discover who was I supposed to be. And so again, hyper philosophical, but I really do get excited about those things throughout the day. I get excited about little moments. Little moments make me really happy of, there's something special about this. Like talking to you right now, this is a great moment. There's a lot of stressful things happening in my life. There's a lot of things spinning. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of uncertainties. But sitting with you right now, Stephanie, having this conversation, hopefully inspiring other people to tell stories, to find their voice, to not be silenced anymore, to help businesses know that they can tell stories, to see you knowing that you've changed and evolved since last month, knowing that you're like, there's so many beautiful things that are happening in this moment. And that makes me really happy to know that I'm going to go to bed and hopefully sleep a little bit. And I'm going to wake up and there's going to be another day of a lot of beautiful opportunities and trying to focus on that positivity. There's a whole lot of holy in this world. There's a whole lot of good. And I want to experience it before my time is up. And yeah, that gets me going. So whether it's business or it's ministry or it's family or it's marriage or it's people or it's living in a camper, it's all good. It's all good and beautiful. And there's a story being written. And I hope I live long enough to have more chapters. And so that's what gets me out of bed. And I hope that inspires other people too, that there's a whole lot of holy in this world and a whole lot of goodness. So tap into it.
Oh, so good. I would drop my microphone if I had one to drop. So good. And so true, because it really is, the cliche saying of it's the little moments that make up the entirety of your life, really is not big moments. It's little moments. It's learning to be present in them, experiencing them completely with every ounce of emotion that, they hold. And I could not agree more. This has been such a soul-driven conversation, which is the point of this podcast, is to really just tap into all the things like business, life, philosophy. Like I could sit in this conversation all day because I think that at the end of the day, we have to do what we're here on this earth to do, whatever we feel called to do. And it's really awesome to see a friend like you following those callings, continuing to show up. And this has just been such an awesome conversation. So if someone wants to continue to follow your story, your journey, where can they find you?
Yeah, so simple social media handle is just the Jon Reiner. So TheJonReiner. Facebook and Instagram, you can follow me on there. You can go to my website, which is thejonreiner.com. It's getting an upgrade right now, but you'll still be able to tap into the older version. And then in a couple of weeks, a new one will come out, which I'm really excited about. And there's a contact page right there. So you can contact me if you are a small business owner. If something about this does inspire you, I do want to get better about my communication or my brand story, you can always contact me. We can set up an appointment. And I just love doing it. I love hearing other people's stories and what they're doing. If you follow me, I'm taking, I don't know when this episode goes, so I'll probably already go, but I have maybe 4 or 5 trips coming up in the next 4 or 5 months. So you can follow me along for those as well. So you'll see a little bit of home life. You'll see some professional life. You'll see me on the road as a trainer in the different places I go to. But yeah, reach out. Any questions, reach out. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And until next time, keep following what drives your soul. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it out with someone else who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you know when new episodes drop. And until next time, be sure to take care of your mind, your body, and your soul.